I was a typical internet enthusiast, curious about the mysterious corners of the web. Stories about the deep web floated around in online forums, rumors of places where secrets were kept, rules didn't apply, and one could glimpse parts of the world hidden from everyday view. A mix of intrigue and boredom led me to an impulsive decision one night. I would finally dive into these forbidden depths. I sat in my dimly lit room, the silence broken only by the occasional hum of my computer, headphones in place, screen brightness turned low to match the quiet of midnight. After navigating through a maze of obscure links and cryptic websites, I landed on a forum. At first glance, it was surprisingly plain, just white text on a black background with a handful of links. But something about it unsettled me. The page almost felt aware of my presence. There was an underlying sense of discomfort, like the feeling of someone watching you, but I couldn't pull myself away. Instead, I scrolled through the threads, absorbing every strange word that appeared on the screen. One link titled "Truth Untold" caught my eye. A spark of intrigue ignited in me as I clicked it. The first post was bizarre, just a sequence of symbols, letters, and numbers. At first it looked like random code, but the longer I stared, the more my mind tried to make sense of it. Slowly, it felt like the characters were arranging themselves, forming almost legible words that seemed to speak to me personally. My room grew colder, and a shiver ran down my spine as I continued reading. Even though my hands shook slightly, I couldn't bring myself to stop. A hidden link within the jumbled text was the next breadcrumb in this digital trail. My pulse quickened as I clicked it, unsure of what I was even hoping to find. The page loaded painfully slowly, adding to the sense of tension that had begun to coil in my stomach. When it finally opened, I was staring at what appeared to be a live video feed of a dark, empty room. At first, the scene was still, showing nothing more than a shadowed corner. But just as I was about to close the tab, a figure emerged from the darkness. My breath caught as I watched it, transfixed, unsure if it was a trick of the lighting or something more sinister. The figure didn't move much, only a slight shift, as though it was merely standing with its back turned to the camera. Every instinct in my body screamed for me to close the page, but I sat there, paralyzed, unable to look away. My eyes burned as I strained to see any detail that would help me make sense of the figure's presence. Was it a person? A mannequin? A shadow? Suddenly, the figure moved. A slight, almost imperceptible tilt of its head, as though it was acknowledging my presence. My heart raced, and I felt my face flush with a sudden surge of adrenaline. Without thinking, I slammed my laptop shut, trying to escape whatever bizarre nightmare I had just witnessed. The relief was short-lived, however, as the image of that shadowy figure remained burned into my mind, haunting me every time I closed my eyes. The next morning, I tried to brush it off as a bad dream, but strange things began happening. As I sat at my desk, my laptop, which I hadn't touched since the night before, emitted a soft whisper. I froze, convinced I was hearing things, but there it was again, a faint, unintelligible murmur, like someone was speaking just out of earshot. Heart pounding, I opened my laptop, only to find the screen black, as if it were asleep. I told myself it was nothing, a glitch maybe, but I couldn't shake the eerie feeling that the whispers were somehow meant for me. Each night after that, the whispers grew louder, more distinct, though I could never fully make out the words. The shadowy figure became a regular visitor in my dreams, always standing just a few feet away, back turned, yet somehow watching me with a gaze I could feel even without seeing its face. I avoided my laptop as much as possible, though sometimes I'd find it open on its own, screen flickering with static before going black again. It felt as though something from that sight had followed me back into my world. Days turned into weeks, and the tension only grew worse. One night, I woke to find my laptop glowing softly on my desk, the faint whispers once again filling my room. Desperate to end this nightmare, I approached the device, heart hammering as I lifted the lid. The screen showed the same dark room I'd seen before, and once again, the figure was there, back turned, standing still. This time, though, it began to move, slowly turning towards the camera. My breath hitched as its face came into view, or rather, the absence of it. Where a face should have been, there was only a dark void, hollow and endless. I tried to scream, but no sound escaped my lips as I stared, trapped in the inky darkness of its non-existent gaze. Just as it felt like the darkness would swallow me whole, the screen blinked, and I was back in my quiet, empty room. The figure was gone. The whisper silent. I closed the laptop carefully, half expecting it to open on its own again. Since that night, I've avoided the deep web altogether, though the shadow of that figure haunts me still. Some nights, I swear I can feel its presence watching me from the shadows of my room, a reminder of the dark secret I had uncovered, one that would forever be part of me. I always thought the deep web was just an urban legend, a place where conspiracy theorists claim to find real secrets about the world. That was, until one night changed my perspective entirely. My friend, Alex, who had always been a little too adventurous for his own good, was the one who dragged me into it. He had a knack for finding the weirdest, most unsettling things online. And that evening, he was especially animated. "Have you heard of the Abyss?" he whispered, as if even saying the name out loud was forbidden. I rolled my eyes, pretending to shrug it off. "It's probably just another urban legend," I replied, trying to brush it off. But Alex had this look in his eyes, a gleam of genuine terror mixed with excitement, that made me uneasy. "No, dude," he insisted, thrusting his phone towards me. "This is real. There's a site on the dark web. It's supposed to show you things, like stuff you're not supposed to know about." At first I laughed, thinking it was just another one of his tricks. But his expression remained serious. Before I knew it, my curiosity got the best of me. With Alex's help, I installed the necessary software, feeling a mix of thrill and fear. Late that night, after Alex had sent me the link, I sat alone in my room with just the glow of my laptop illuminating the darkness around me. With a deep breath, I clicked the link. The site loaded with an unnervingly slow pace, revealing a simple, dark background covered in lines of garbled code. Distorted images flickered on and off the screen, some showing faces that seemed almost real, while others looked like twisted, nightmarish shapes that I couldn't quite make out. Every time I tried to look directly at one, it would seem to shift, just out of view. Then a prompt appeared. "Do you wish to see?" The question seemed innocent enough, but it was oddly chilling. My hands trembled as I clicked yes. The screen immediately went black, and for a moment, I thought my laptop had crashed. But then, a video feed began to load. The footage was grainy, like an old VHS tape. It was hard to see at first, but as the image cleared up, I realized I was looking at a dimly lit bedroom. There was nothing out of the ordinary about it. A simple bed, a small window with drawn curtains, and a dresser in the corner. Yet something about it felt painfully familiar. I leaned closer, squinting at the screen. That's when it hit me. The room in the video was identical to mine. The bed was the same, right down to the rumpled blue comforter. The dresser was in the same spot, with the same dusty clock resting on top. My stomach twisted, and a cold sweat broke out over my skin. Just as I was about to close the browser, something else happened. In the dim light, I could make out a shadow moving near the foot of the bed. My breath caught in my throat as I watched the shadowy figure approach, each step echoing through the silent room like distant footsteps in a dark hallway. The figure was coming closer and closer to where I would be lying right now, had I been in bed. My instincts screamed at me to look away, to close the laptop and throw it across the room. But I was frozen. The figure moved with a slow, methodical pace, almost savoring each step. When it finally reached the edge of the bed, it leaned down, as if inspecting the empty sheets. A pale, featureless face turned toward the camera, tilting in an almost curious manner, like it knew I was watching. I tried to click out of the video, but my screen was unresponsive. I jammed my fingers against the keys, each second feeling like an eternity. But nothing worked. The feed wouldn't stop. Desperately, I looked back at the screen, and that's when I saw something that made my blood run cold. The figure was no longer just a shadow. It was my face staring back at me from the screen. Blank, expressionless, and yet with a haunting familiarity that made my stomach drop. This thing, it looked exactly like me, but its eyes were hollow, as though they were looking right through me. Then, as if it sensed my terror, its lips began to twist into a smile. A horrible, slow grin that seemed to stretch too wide, cracking at the edges, as though the skin itself were tearing. My fingers flew to the laptop, and I slammed it shut, throwing myself back from the desk as I gasped for breath. For a few moments, I just sat there, staring at the closed laptop, unable to process what I'd just seen. It couldn't have been real. There was no way that had actually happened. I forced myself to laugh, to chalk it up to some twisted prank Alex had set up to mess with me. But as the days passed, I couldn't shake the image from my mind. I started noticing strange things. My laptop, for example, would sometimes turn itself on in the middle of the night, the faint hum of the fan jolting me awake. One night, I swear I saw the same face, my face, reflected in the dark screen before it flickered off again. I stopped sleeping well. Every night, I felt as though something was watching me. My room, once my safe space, felt invaded, like there was something lurking in the shadows just waiting for me to look away. Friends and family noticed how I seemed constantly on edge, but I couldn't bring myself to explain. How could I tell them I was haunted by myself? The most disturbing part is, deep down, I wonder if I invited something into my life that night on the dark web. If by clicking yes, I somehow opened a door that should have stayed closed. Now, even on nights when I try to forget, I can feel it waiting, patient and silent, just beyond the glow of my screen. I'd always heard unsettling stories about the deep web, but assumed it was mostly urban legend. Still, when a friend dared me to explore it, I accepted with a grin. We spent that night talking about all the bizarre and twisted things lurking on the deep web, forbidden marketplaces, secret societies, and hidden forums. Part of me dismissed it all as nonsense, but curiosity grew in me. I found a guide online, followed the steps, and within minutes, I was ready to dive in. The process was surprisingly easy, almost too easy. In minutes, I'd entered a maze of anonymous forums, strange marketplaces, and obscure chat rooms. The screen glowed a sickly green as I scrolled past lines of cryptic symbols. Some coded, some in languages I didn't recognize. Most of it looked like amateur nonsense or troll attempts to scare newcomers. I was about to give up when I found a link that caught my attention. Beyond the Black. The tagline beneath read, "Once you enter, you won't return the same." The words alone gave me pause, but I convinced myself it was nothing more than a creepy gimmick. I clicked on the link. The page loaded slowly, each second stretching out like an eternity. It was almost entirely black, except for a faint gray countdown at the center of the screen, ticking down from 60. I stared, feeling a creeping sense of dread, but was too intrigued to look away. As the countdown ticked down, I thought, this is stupid. Nothing will happen. When it hit 0, my screen flickered, and a dim, grainy live feed appeared. At first, the screen was dark, so dark I thought my monitor had shut off. I squinted, adjusting my brightness until faint lights blinked into existence. They illuminated what looked like a long, narrow hallway. The feed wobbled as if held by an unsteady hand, revealing door after door lining the hallway. Each door was closed, but every few steps, one would creak open slightly, as if inviting me in. I felt my heart rate pick up. It felt so real, so close, as though I was the one walking down that hallway. The camera paused in front of a door with a red light leaking out from beneath. The sight filled me with an inexplicable sense of dread. I wanted to look away, but it felt impossible. Whoever was behind the camera reached out and opened the door, revealing a dimly lit room. My jaw dropped as I took in the details. It was my room. The same posters lined the walls, my chair was in the corner, and even my sweater lay draped over it, just as I'd left it earlier that night. I felt my throat tighten, my laptop screen glitched, and in that moment, I swear I saw myself on the screen, staring back with hollow, lifeless eyes. I froze, hands trembling as I tried to rationalize what I was seeing. This had to be a prank, an elaborate joke meant to scare me. But as I continued watching, I saw something even stranger. A figure in the dark corner of my room, standing perfectly still. The screen glitched again, and suddenly, I couldn't see the figure anymore. Only the empty corner. My eyes darted back to the live feed, hoping to catch another glimpse. I panicked, quickly slammed my laptop shut, and pulled myself away from the desk, feeling as though I'd narrowly escaped something sinister. The feeling didn't leave. Each creak of my apartment and flicker of shadows made my skin crawl. I kept reminding myself it was just a trick, just a silly prank or some expertly designed code meant to mess with people. But that night, sleep eluded me. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt as if I was being watched, like something was lurking in the shadows, waiting for me to look again. I couldn't shake the feeling, and even in the days that followed, the sense of being watched lingered, so potent it was, as if I had let something into my room that night. After a few days, I tried to brush it off, returning to my usual routine. But one evening, just as I was dozing off, I heard a faint creak from my bedroom door. My eyes snapped open. The door was moving, slowly opening, as if someone were pressing it from the other side. My heart hammered as I stared at the door, willing it to stop. Then I heard the sound of soft, dragging footsteps, followed by a voice. A whisper, my own voice, saying, "Look again." I sat bolt upright, fumbling for the light switch. The room flooded with light, but there was nothing there. Just my empty room, silent and still. I exhaled, laughing shakily at my own paranoia, and convinced myself it had all been a dream. Yet, as I sat there, my laptop screen lit up, seemingly on its own. I crept over, my stomach nodding. On the screen was the same hallway from the deep web video, that familiar door with the red light seeping out from beneath it. My heart skipped as the camera approached the door, just as it had the first time, pausing in front of it as though giving me a choice, to open it again or to finally shut it out. I shut my laptop again and took a few deep breaths, deciding this time I was done. But the memory of that red light, that feeling of someone in the shadows, stayed with me. Even now, as I write this, I can't shake the sensation that someone or something is waiting. And sometimes I catch a flicker in the corner of my eye, a hint of movement that disappears the moment I look. I can't help but wonder, what would have happened if I had looked back?
Thanks for joining us in the shadows tonight. If you enjoyed these chilling tales, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more spine-tingling stories every week. Have you got a story of your own? Share it in the comments below. We love hearing from you. And remember, the darkness holds many secrets. Are you brave enough to uncover them? Until next time, keep your lights on and your doors locked. Sweet nightmares.